Hello and welcome. So I've got a Selmer Treble N Bass 50 SV. We've done a couple of these on the channel already. This one is in fairly good condition. The last one we did had the chicken knobs on it because the original knobs don't tend to fare very well on these amps, but these are in remarkable condition. So you can see, if we look, we've got standby up there. We've got volume, treble and bass for each channel, and then we've got a presence control. I don't know if these knobs have been made. I don't know, these don't look original to me. These look like they've been made. I think they have. No, they're not original. Anyway, they look nice. So bass input, first we've got bass channel, normal input channel, and then we've got an echo in and out, which is really just to send and return on there. Now the cabinets, actually I've already taken it out of the cabinet. As I say, this is the second one of these. This will be the third one of these that I've restored on the channel. Might even be the fourth one, because I've got one of my own as well, which I did some work on. Anyway, let's have a look underneath. Actually, before we have a look underneath, let's just have a look at on the top first. So we've got four capacitors there. They're wide in series, one for node 1 and one set for node 2. And we've got these two down here. These are 3232s for the preamps. Those are 100 plus 100 wide in series to 50. If we look, some work has been done to this amp at some point. There's a mica cap there, resistor being added, and that's an original resistor. So check the schematic and see if that's original. Done the same on there, and then there's a couple of yellow capacitors being added there, and there's some hot glue on them to keep them tight. That's good, very professional. And one of the things you have problems with on these Selmers is these this insulation on these switches tends to corrode over time. It don't look too bad on this one actually. The others that I did was terrible, just flaked away. Output tubes in there under that screen, under that there, you can see. Not sure what they are. I'll have to get those out and have a look, but EL34s, we know they are. We've got 3 preamp tubes and a blank socket there, and the reason for that is that this one doesn't have the reverb, and by the look of it they just leave that socket on, maybe. And then of course we've got the I always say this, we've got the phase inverter in the naughty corner there. It's just, if we just bring some light over there, yeah, he's in the naughty corner. It makes me laugh when I see that on its own there. And then we've got these 3 12x7s. Not sure what they are, but yes. Right, now we'll have a look underneath. So I've just actually looked on the front, and there is a couple of grommeted controls, and you can see this tube socket. It looks like only one side of that's been used. If we just get in close there, you can see that only one side of that's been used, the pins, and I don't know whether that was it, whether this did have reverb on. It should have R on the front if it has. Let's have a look again. No, it just says SV. Having said that, one of mine is the SV, and that did have reverb. The reverb tanks never survive on these. They really, one of the things that let them down. Brilliant amp, but they never survived. Just having a look. So it's had a couple of plate resistors changed there, so that's good. It's had a 1 meg replaced there. Had some work done here, maybe just dry joints. All the coupling caps are still original. Oh, it's no, I thought they'd been changed, but they've not. So it's still got the original bypass capacitors on there. If we're looking, still got the original bypass caps, original bias cap, and original bias diode there. And it's got the original diode still on there. I tend to change those just because of the sheer age of them, although they are pretty rugged. These capacitors they do look in good order, which they didn't on the ones I did previous. They were punctured and gumption was coming out of them, but these look pretty good. Now, another problem these amplifiers have is that the HT fuse is wired on the negative side through ground, and it causes a ground loop on these. They also have a distant hum in the background. This one hasn't been converted, or has it? Has it been converted? This one, no. So that's one thing we'll have to do to this amp, because the hum, what is this taped on the back? Oh, there's a bolt taped on the back there. Not sure what that's about. There must be one of the fixing bolts. Fixing bolts were missing out of this amp. It's had an IEC added there. We can see on there, just get a bit more light in there. You can see you've got that IEC there fitted. Let's have a look at yeah, and that's been done really well. So yeah, so whoever's worked on this amp has made a thorough job of what work they have done on it, and it is an advantage if you can have one of those on there, an IEC on there. But yeah, so it's all looking pretty good in here. Yeah, some very good work been done. And as I say, we're not sure what was here, whether it was for this socket, whether it did have reverb, and reverb's been removed. Actually, if I turn it over, I should be able to see where the reverb transformer was. It's been stood there all those years, bolted to the chassis. So I think this is from the shop, so I just need to contact Lee and see how far he wants to go with this. These also have a shared screen resistor there, which I'm never particularly happy about. I always think it's better if they have one on each tube. That's how I think it. Let me know in the comments if you think that's different. So I may do that, and I'm going to change those bypass capacitors, that's definite. So they're going to be changed. And we may end up changing all these electrolytics as well. So these electrolytics are wired up in series, as I've said, and they're 100 microfarads. Now, when I did the last one, I used a 2-in-1 cap and wired them in series, and I was told off for doing that, and it worked fine. It worked absolutely fine, but somebody told me that was a bad practice. And I've actually changed the other one, and it's funny how you just don't see things the same sometimes when you're working on things. I suddenly realised that these caps are 500 volt rating that I actually put in there, so I did a test just to see what voltage it hit the caps when this amp was switched on before it conducted, and it's about 470 volts. So I ended up just putting one 500 volt plus 500 volt. You got 2-in-1 can there, and just put that in, and that's fine. It works absolutely fine, because really all you've got here is 50 plus 50. So if you've got 50 in each side of a can, 50 in one can, then you just put one of those in there. And I don't know why I didn't think of that, but yeah, as I say, I wired one of these, one for the screen, one for the first node and one for the second node, and I wired them in series. They share one ground, so it kind of went positive, negative, positive, and I put that positive to ground, and it worked fine. There were no problems with them. I've seen them wired up like that before, but somebody told me it was bad practice, and the person that told me, a guy called Steve Ward, who's a very, very good tech. So more experienced than I am, so I took his word for it, and I have actually changed the other one, and if I wire this one up I will be doing that the same. So thanks for that, Steve, appreciate it. I'll leave a link to Steve's website as well. He's down, forget where he is now, down into Wales there, South Wales. I'll leave you a link to his website. He does guitars as well, great guy, and he's got a great website as well. Right, we'll see about changing all these capacitors. I'll contact these bypass capacitors. I'll contact Lee and see what else he wants to do. I have got to change that HT fuse over onto the positive side. That gets rid of the ground loop, and it should be on the positive side anyway. We just need to check a few more things. These are looking okay on this one, so they can be left. So not as much to do on this one as there was on the previous ones I did. And of course somebody's done some good work to this. Again, another just spotted another plate resistor change there. So you know, they've obviously been changed because they've either gone out of oh, there's a dry joint there. Oh, there is, look at that, my days. Well, we just get some pliers. Spotted that. That's a cold solder, that. Just go in there. Let's just see if we can zoom in on that. Yeah, so if we look there we go, look at that. Cold solder. Oh, blow me. But that's no big deal, we can sort that out. We just suck the solder out, pop it back in the eyelet, put some fresh solder on. That one looks a little cold as well there. I think I might just have a check around at some of these, but there we found that's nothing really. It's we can soon fix that, it's no big deal. But it's good that these plate resistors have been changed. I like to change the plate resistors. It makes sense when you're in them because they can get noisy, and it's like anything else. You do all the repairs to the amp, and then you don't change the plate resistors. 6 months time, it's, you know, it's frying away like a Sunday morning breakfast. You'll have to excuse my voice. The lurgy continues. Find a couple more plate resistors there that weren't, just in a bit more. Find a couple of plate resistors there, some of the old ones, so I've changed those. Put some shrink tubing on that wire because it was a bit burnt. Repaired that dry joint that we had, and I'm just replacing another plate resistor here that I've taken out. And really with these eyelets, it's just a matter of sucking all the solder out and getting all the flux from around them, cleaning them up, and then redoing them. You can see that on this one here, if you look, we've had a visit from Mr. Laycross, so that's just can't be bothered to shove it in the eyelet there. That's obviously been done at the factory. The guy that's done the previous work, he's put them all in the eyelets, so that's obviously been done at the factory. You can see that there's a bit of flux around these that have been done here, so we'll just scrape that off. And I tend to crown these, it just makes them look a bit nicer, so I just put a crown on them. Some of the wiring is a bit, this wire it's a tendency to melt very easily, the plastic, and obviously that's been melted in the past. Again, whether that's been done when it was being manufactured, so you got to be really careful when you're doing that. That one, somebody's really melted that one, so I've just put some tubing on there. So we're working his way through. He looks a bit grabby, doesn't he? Oh dear, look at that. That's been cut off during testing by the look of it. And so I've got to stop holding onto this camera when I'm moving it because it's shaking. Just go in there, so you can see there that's been cut off and just laid across, put back on. What is that, 100 picofarad? We'll have to test. That's across the I don't know, is that across the phase inverter? They've got 100 microfarad and 82k, so it probably is. Yes, I think that is over the phase inverter, so that'll be to stop the oscillation. So we'll have a new one of those, because that's obviously doesn't look very clever anyway, does it? It's been snipped there. I don't want anybody thinking I've done that. We've got a capacitor for the just go across here. I've got a capacitor here ready for the bias. This is 100 microfarad at 100 volts. That one's 50 at 150, but we don't need 150 on there. So 400 microfarad in will be just fine. And I've got some caps to go in here. The 25s, which are 22s I've got, so I try getting the 25s. They're all radials, I'm afraid, but they'll be fine on this job. So we're going to use those. And I think we'll just come in here and just tidy all this up a bit as well. And we'll just generally get this board done. It looks like here that something has been maybe added on there, I don't know. We've got some, maybe that must maybe to do with this too. I don't know. Has the eyelet been removed from there? I don't know what's been going on there. You just look in this corner, that looks a bit blobby and cold on that one, so we'll get in there and sort that one out. That one, no, that's not too bad. So it's just a general tidy up really on this board and get the board done. So we are going to recap this amp. So these caps are coming out. I spoke to Lee, and he wants those changing. So we'll just put one can in 50 plus 50 at 500 volts. The 232s that we've got down here, they will have to be changed as well. And then the other thing we're going to do is these screen resistors. We've got a shared screen resistor here, so what we're going to do is have a separate screen resistor on each tube. It's a much better way of doing it. I think that's just a penny pinching exercise, which in those days, I don't know, maybe these were more money than they are now, I don't know. But so yes, I think that'll about do it for this amp. It doesn't need a massive amount doing to it, enough, but not like the others. This one's in a bit better condition, where we've had to do all the switch insulation on here and stuff. They're all fine. It's got all the mustard caps in, and these green caps, these generally hold up well. So do the mustard caps. We'll test them to see if there's any leakage, but I bet you there isn't. These two over here, these are the two that get the most hammering, because they have the highest voltage on, and they're blocking the DC out from the grids on the EL34s. So you can see I've got this. This is the phase inverter connections there. You can see I've got these wires out. You can see that's been burnt. So say that wire is, you've got to be really careful. It's really flimsy plastic, doesn't stand much heat. If we look at this capacitor, you can see it's been burnt there on the end, as somebody's had the iron over the top and burnt that. And again, you can see all the deposits around these. We're looking there around the eyelets there. So this plate resistor must be the one that got away. So we've got the two plate resistors on here, and that's on the meter. So you can see it now. So we've got an 82 and 100 ohms. Look at the 100 ohms one. 176.8, that's out of circuit as well, remember, it's not in circuit, and the other one's spot on, so a bit of a discrepancy there with that one, so we need to change that resistor. We'll have two new plate resistors, two new coupling caps there. We've got a couple of 220 grid leaks there. We can see, go into the tubes, let's just check those on that 222. 220, so they'll be fine. We tend to scrape this off because it's old flux and we don't want that interacting with the new solder. Just keeping that nice and clean there, and that's how we do it really. We just brush that off there, and a bit of a blast of the old gumption on there, the alcohol on there. And he's ready to rock and roll. Now, if some of you have wondered in the past why I never filmed myself soldering any of these joints and things, it's because I use a fan when an extractor fan when I'm soldering to keep the smoke, because I don't want to be breathing that in. It's not good for you. So and that's why I never bother, because the noises that you can when you're filming. But one of the things with these eyelets, when you're actually unsoldering them, is always to pull the wire out first before you do the resistors, because what happens is that's getting hotter and hotter while you're trying to pull the resistors out, and eventually it melts the plastic on the wire. So always start the wire first, heat it up, get the wire out of the way before it starts to melt all the insulation. And that's what's been happening on these. You know, the insulation melts so easy on these wires. So that's just a bit of a tip there, is to get that out first, and then get the resistors out of the eyelet. And there you can see we've now got the resistors and capacitors installed there. So we've got 100k, which was 176 before. A bit more. It was 176, now that's 100. So obviously it's gone way out of spec. And we've got an 82k, we've got a couple of 47 there, and that's all good. Got all the flux from around the things. If you look at the other one next door, there you can see the flux around there. So we'll go in there and tidy that up next. Here's a resistor that's been changed, and that, I'm not sure where that's going actually. That's going down onto the tone stack, and that's an 8.2k. So let's measure that one and just see what that's saying to us, because that one's obviously been changed because it was out of tolerance. So he says 7.1. Yeah, 7.1, 7.11. So it'll be all right. Let's just look at that one that's been put in. He must be in parallel with something else. It's probably in parallel with, I don't know, with that maybe. I don't know how that's wired without looking at the schematic, but I think I'll just pull one leg on that and just to be 100% sure, but I'm guessing that's why it says 44k, so you can bet it's wired in parallel with something. And just looking in there at that mess, that is a 4.7k on there. Okay, 4.46, nearly 4, yeah, nearly 4 point. So that for nearly 4.5, that'll be fine. Just clean that up a bit around there. I think that's just got again quite a lot of flux around it, and it's okay soldering wise. So that's good. That's okay. That just needs a clean up. So if we move across, we've got a 1 meg resistor there. Check that, and that's on the money, 1022. There's another one here as well, which we just move across. What is that? Yeah, that's 1 meg, 1057. That's okay. And that's another, what is that one? 820 ohms, is that? Yeah, 815. 1 meg. Yeah, 1036, that's fine. So they're all good. All those resistors are good. Grid leaks are good. It's had a 1 meg added there. On there. Might just check that on the schematic. I don't know whether anybody's done any mods to this amp, you know, because there has been some work done on the tone stacks. So I'm going to have to check that. I mean, if it has and it sounds okay, then we'll just leave it. It'll be fine. There's no issues there. As long as a modded amp sounds good, that's fine by me. And then the only other ones that are left on here is, and that soldering there does look a bit, that does look a bit iffy. That bit blobby and cold. That one, although nothing's falling out of it. Not sure what that one's doing actually. That says 1.47k. Is that 1.5? It is. So the resistor's okay, but that's so. I think we'll just tidy that up a bit there as well. Resistor down here on the bias, but as long as the bias is set in, that's not really relevant. I think that should be 69k. That says on there, blue, white, orange. I think that's 69k. A bit hard to get a reading off because of the cap. So we'll have to excuse me, we'll have to take that out of circuit to test that. And then this resistor is the drop-in resistor from the, because this gets its bias feed from one side of the AC on the power transformer. So this is the drop-in resistor to the diode, and that is 3.9k on there. We've got 3.81. So that'll probably be okay, but we'll check the bias anyway. Of course, these don't have a bias preset pot on. Can't remember whether I put bias preset pots on the others or not. Right, so we'll get on, we'll tidy the rest of this board up, and we'll just get the vacuum cleaner on, get off any bits of stray solder, and that should do it for the board, I think. Can't see anything else. I think we've checked every resistor on it now. That that 470k there, I don't think we've checked. It's just hone in on that one there, these two 470s. I wonder why we didn't go back and double check one. I didn't see them the first time. 467, that's fine. 488, is it 470? That's 18k over. He's borderline, isn't he? I think I might change him. 488k, he's not a long way out, is he? 10% 40, so he's alright, he'll be fine. He's fine. That's good. So all that's done. So all we've got to do now, all we've got to do on this board now to finish it is we need to clean up this flux from around here. Just check that term connection there. And then we need to just come across here. You can hear Pink in the background meowing away, no doubt. And then all we need to do is change this resistor here and that bit of a cold solder there, sort that out, and I think that'll do it for the board. It'll be done, and we can move on to these coupling bypass capacitors, sorry, and then we can start moving on to the bigger stuff, onto the bigger caps. So I've also changed the camera that I've been using. I'm still getting used to it, but this video is in 4K. We did one other video in 4K, which was that WEM AX100 as well. So trying to improve the video quality. So I'm still experimenting with this camera, but we're getting there with it now. Right, so I was just about to say, got all this board finished, and then if we look down there, that brown wire, you can see someone's got against it with the soldering iron and burnt it there. It's all burnt there. You can see. Just see how close we can get in with this camera. So you can see there, it's a little burnt. So I'm going to have to just put some shrink tubing on that, and then we are finished. So you can see, cleaned up all this one here. Mr. Laycross had done that one, so they'd laid, I mean, you know, there's 4 things going in there. You can understand laying one across the top, but they'd laid all of them across the top except for the resistor. I managed to get all 3 in, so I might just have a look at that one as well there. But we've done that, we've cleaned all this up this side, we've cleaned all the flux off. There's a little bit of my flux there. When it dries, I just scrape that off, but basically we're about there with it now. We just look across. See, we've got the bias capacitor in there, so we're all ready to go. We just got this to put some shrink tubing on that just to make that look tidy. It looks a mess. I don't want anybody thinking I've done that. And there we go. That's addressed that, sorted that out. Excuse me. So we're finished now on this board. We've got it all, tested all the resistors. So the next thing is we're going to change these coupling keep saying that, the bypass capacitors, and we're going to check the cathode resistors to make sure they're in spec as well. There's another resistor there, not sure what that's doing again without looking close and browsing at the schematic. So we've got 3, I thought we got 4 of these. We've actually got 3 of these bias resistors, 3 of these coupling capacitors to change and 3 bias resistors to check there, and then that'll be done, and then we've just got the capacitors to do the main electrolytics. Right, so I'm back on this amp. Had a bit of a break from it. I've been ill, lost my voice, the old lurgy, but we're back now. So I've changed the cathode bypass capacitors across the stages there. We've now completed all this board, and we're now turning his attention onto the let me just put another light on over here. We're now turning our attention to the capacitors, the main electrolytic capacitors that we've got here. So we've got 4 on there. As I said, I went through that at the beginning of this video where we're actually going to use one 50 plus 50 in the place of these, providing, of course, when we switch this on, there's less than 400 volts before conductance. Now, the last one I did, there was about 480 volts, and this is the same amplifier, but it's never a good idea to say, oh well, the last one was, this one will be the same. This transformer could be dishing out a bit more HT than the last one. You can never guarantee that with transformers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check this amplifier to see what the maximum HT voltage is when we switch it on. And this, as I say, this amp's got an IEC on the back socket, where the others that I've done, they've just been through cable. So I've made a really good job of that, putting that on. So that's really good. Now I've got this on the Variac, and I've got 240 volts on the Variac, because I want to make sure that the maximum voltage on the primary hits this. When this amplifier fires up, hits the secondary, we need to know that that's going to be under 500 volts. Now, some people in the UK have reported getting more than 240 volts. One guy on the channel actually left a message saying that where he lives, he gets up to 248 volts, which is really high. I've never seen that high a voltage, but I have heard stories of people getting above 240. But I've got about 241 on the Variac. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up. There's no tubes in it. I'm going to fire this amp up and just see. We're just going to see what lands on that meter. Only 463 on that one. So this amp's got less HT than the other one. When you're doing this, you need to be careful, because there's no tubes in this amp, which means no conductance. These caps will still be holding charge normally. This amplifier, because these caps are wired in series, has got balancing resistors on, which also act as bleeder resistors. But if we look at that, we can still see there that there's you can see that dropping. So don't just dive straight into it when you've switched it off, because you will find that they are still holding voltage, and you can see that's now going down 80 odd there, and the balancing resistors will gradually drop that off. If we go on to these ones here, 70 odd, so you see that's now going out. We're kind of looking there at 15 volts under. So the other one was like 480 something. So again, with 15 volts on there, if it was 15 volts over instead of 15 volts under, it could be close to 500 volts. So not all these transformers, they may all be the same type, but they're not all wound exactly the same. But we're well inside with that. So that means that we can now put one cap, and I'll just show you the capacitor that we're going to put on here. because there's no point putting 4 of those in, and I have done that in the past, and suddenly I thought, duh, that's just a silly thing to do, and it's also a waste of money. You don't need that many caps. So 50 plus 50 that we've got there, so that means we've got 250 microfarad capacitors, 1 for each side. One's node 1, node 2. So we just put that in one. We'll put that in that hole there, and we'll remove the other 3, and that's fine, because we know as soon as we switch this amplifier on, there will be less than 500 volts. A good lot less there, 460 odd. So that's fine. So that covers those, and then these 2 are 32. And if we look at these capacitors, I'm not sure what the voltage. Can't see the voltage rating because they're in the cans. But some people will say, oh, these are further down the line. We'll put a 350 rating on those, and by the time the amp's conducted, and that's probably fine. It probably is only 350 on these. So let's just put the meter on there now. Yes, we've got no. You see now, if we just put the meter back in shot, you can see now we've only got 6 volts on there. So you can see that voltage has dropped considerably. But let's see what hits these capacitors when we switch on. So not as much voltage is hitting those. You see that's crawling up all the time. Now it's hitting those a bit softer than it does the first node caps, but I've seen some amps where you've switched it on and that voltage, that that 460 volts has been on these caps. So be careful when you're thinking, oh, I'll use a less voltage rated cap on here. I just put 500s all the way through. That way you're covered. Some people say that's overkill, but to be fair, and they don't cost a deal more money. It's if it's a couple of quid for each cap, if it's £5, £5, to have that assurance that you're not going to have any problems. But that's how I do it anyway. So we're going to rip these caps out now, because obviously they're no good, and someone's just popped in to see us, as you can see. Pink's come to see us again, and I'm just going to make sure that there's no voltage on these, because she's knocking around. No, it's gone. That's all right. It's no current, no voltage in there. Sorry. What do you want, madam? What do you want? Yes. Well, I'm afraid I'm busy. So I'm afraid that before we take these caps out, we're going to have to go and get Pink a treat, because if I don't, we're not going to get rid of her. Right, I've got the caps out. So we've just got this one, and we're going to put this one here on this hole there. Now the ground for the power lead was connected around one of the screws on there, which it's a bit of a no-no. It's not a huge deal, but it's not the ideal. So I think what we're going to do is enlarge this ground hole and put a much better terminal on than that, so that's a little more secure. And we're also going to change these diodes, so put some new ones in. And if we look at the ground coming from this is a bridge rectifier basically with four diodes. We just hone in there, just get a bit more light. If we hone in, we can see that this is the ground, and if you look at this ground here, this ground wire is going to this HT fuse holder here. So we've got, and that's what the HT fuse runs non-negative on these amps. This is what causes this causes a ground loop on these amps, and they have like a bit of a hum in the background, and they all suffer from it. So we have to change this over, so this needs to be on positive. So when if you're going to change these diodes, whether you're changing them or not, you need to remove the ground from there, from the tip on the fuse, and you need to then put that ground down to the chassis, and then you need to put your live feed through this fuse, and you can see the other side of this is going down to that capacitor there. And so on that ground, what's happening is that the ground here is causing a loop from there to the ground on these capacitors, and that's what's causing that hum. And I actually, when I did the first one of these, I said a guy contacted me on the channel, and he'd been trying for ages to get rid of this hum on his amp, and I'd actually just started working on one then, and I thought, well, I'll try to track it down. And I had noticed it on, I'd got a couple, I'd got one of my own in and one in for repair, and I did notice the hum on it. Anyway, I eventually tracked it down to that. It was quite easy in the end. So you shouldn't have the HT fuse on the negative side anyway. It's not a good idea. So that needs to be swapped over, and that will get rid of that background hum. So if you've got one of these amps and you have got a bit of a faint background hum in the background, then that's what's causing it. You need to get that changed over. You don't have to, and it'll run fine without it, but it'll get rid of the hum, and it'll also just bring it up to. The problem with having that on the negative line is when the fuse blows, is that the power is still going through the amplifier until it reaches ground. So technically, although the fuse is blown, they're live. This is all live. It's all coming back. That's the general idea. Having the fuse on the live, it cuts the power to the whole of the amplifier. That's the general consensus of doing that. So you can see I've took all the diodes out, and I've cleaned the top of it there, and I've took the nuts off. Now here's what you get with eyelets. Look at the state of that underneath. So these boards, the bigger board, you can't really take that out and do the bottoms, but on that one you can. And the solder will take okay on the tops, but while you've got this board out, it's a good idea just to tip it upside down, and you can see the solder's not fully out of the holes as well. On the one on the right bottom hole there's still quite a bit of solder left in there, which you can't suck out from the top. So by turning it over, and then what we're going to do is clean these eyelets up. So they're clean on one side, but they're not clean on that side, are they? That doesn't look very clever, especially that one. It looks dreadful. So all that gunk that's in that eyelet there is going to just get into all the fresh solder, which we don't want. So we clean up both sides on this because we can. It's easy. Right, so that's got that all cleaned up, and we've got that put back on. Now with this this fuse here, now you can see we've got a ground there, so you need to snip off that ground. Just snip that wire off at both ends, get rid of it, and then we're going to connect on to, we've got this ground wire here that's connected to the tip. We need to remove that because we're going to put positive line through there from the HT. Now while you're at it, always check the fuses, and I've just wound this fuse out of here because obviously we check the fuses anyway, and you can see that says 3 amps. That should be 500 milliamps. So somebody stuffed that in there, and very fortunate really that there's not been a fault on this amp, because that could have done some serious damage by the time it blew. It's already on its way to destroying the windings on the transformer. This 1/8 inch socket was on the back, not connected to anything. I've taken that out. I didn't even spot that actually when I was looking at the amp first time. Don't know why, I just suddenly thought, oh, what's that? But we've got rid of that. Let's have a look at the fuse, the mains fuse then, for the coming in from the wall power. So this fuse doesn't have, as you can see, doesn't have a label on it. It's also a bit corroded. So there's a 6 on there. I don't know what that is. Is that 6 amp? Who knows? So we need to change that as well. We need to change that because it doesn't have a label on it. It could be anything. So it should be 3 amp or 1.5 amp. 3 amp is for 115 volts, so we don't want that. And 1.5 amp is for 250 volts. So we need, let's always remember that on the mains, the less voltage, the higher the current. So the 110 would have 3 amp, but this is a 240, so we only need 1.5. So again, we don't know what that is. we can see a 6 on there. We can't see anything on the metal ends, so we need to discard that fuse. It's no good. So always check these when you're doing these amps. They're really old, and you can see this fuse is just in a bad shape, really, and it's obviously it's not even the right fuse either. It says precision fuse. Unfortunately, it's not very precise in this case, so we need to clean inside of these as well. Just get something in there, clean those out, and probably just spray inside the fuse socket with the alcohol spray and just clean those out as well. We've got the power supply done on the first section. We've just got these 2 caps to do, so just show you what we've done there. We've changed the diodes, they're all done, rewired the AC to them with some 18 gauge wire. We've got the capacitor in there, the 50 plus 50. We're all wired up, tested that it works. We've got new ground on there, much heavier duty ground. We've got all the grounds going in there from the cap and from the full wave bridge. Now earlier on, I was singing the praises of the person that fitted this, and that maybe some of you have spotted it before I had, looking through this camera, but I always do a thorough work through from the power supply to everything I've done, and as it just occurred to me, he's fitted this IEC lead and the bolt hole for the amplifier is there, and that explains why that bolt was taped on the back probably and only put 3 bolts in. The major problem for me with that is the fact that if someone buys this amp, and 2 examples, one is you've left that bolt taped on the back, they pull it off and think, oh, that belongs in here, where's that bolt from? So they lift it up and see that's there, so they screw it in and go straight through the IEC, and well, yeah, you can see what's going to happen there, can't you? That could be catastrophic. Or secondly, the bolt's just not on the back, but they happen to look underneath and see it's missing, and then they find a bolt and then force it in, and again, same thing happens. So a good idea, unfortunately poorly executed there where safety is concerned, and this is why it pays. I missed that first couple of times looking through the camera, but after wiring all the power supply up, it always pays to start right from the beginning where the power comes in and check everything for safety and go through. And there again, I spotted that immediately. I did that as soon as I got to there to start checking there. I spotted that, and I really don't know what to do with that because I'm reluctant to leave it, but of course if I take it out, it's going to be a big gaping hole there, and this is why all these amplifiers are on just a through cable. So that really is a problem now, and I'm going to have to really think about how to get around that one. The only safe thing that I could really do now is to block off that hole on the chassis. Would any of you leave it? If any of you techs are watching, would you leave that? I'm not confident on leaving that. Let me know in the comments what you think, but if we just hone in close, you can see that bolt's going to go straight through that IEC. Somebody will screw it in thinking it's missing. That's my opinion on that anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I think I'm going to block that off. I've got to. I can't leave that. It's a very, I don't think a professional tech has fitted that. More I look at it, I just don't think that anyone that's a pro would not have fitted that. That is just a really bad safety hazard for me anyway. But anyway, we'll look at that later, how we're going to deal with that. What he should have done was before he fitted it, was to take that, these things just clip in, was to take that out, so at least if anybody tried to screw a bolt in, they'd never get no thread tension and they'd just give up. That thread will allow that bolt, if they keep turning it, that thread will allow that bolt to force through that IEC. If you remove that, then it would always just be loose. They'd never get any tension on it, so they'd probably just give up. And I think that's probably what I'm going to do there. I think I'm just going to remove that under the IEC, take that out and just remove it for safety. It's the best I can do with it, really. Ideally I'd like to plate it, but that's just a nightmare. So what have we got left to do to this amp now? Well, the only things we've got left to do are these two capacitors down here, and then we need to address the screen resistor. We need to put one on each tube, because it's a shared one. So rather stingy of Selmer there, but that's what companies did in those days. Right, we've got this amp ready to fire up now. We've got both the capacitors sorted out there, and these two here. We've got the screen resistors on there separated now. We've got one on each tube socket. I've removed this screw thread thing here so to make that safer, so that I can't have anything screwed into it and go through that outlet, that AC outlet there. Right, we're gonna fire this thing up now and see if she runs. Now, I have had a small bit of voltage through it before I put the tubes in, just to check there were no shorts and no problems, and that's always a good idea before you actually fire them up. So let's make a start. So we start from here. You can see the meter there. We should be seeing some voltage on there. We've got 75 volts there. Check what we've got on there. 3. So we'll go up a bit more. Just check the amp meter and see what we've got. We have, we don't want it on watts. We have drawing 116 milliamps, so that's not a deal. Yeah, it is beginning to conduct already. It's got 232 175, so we are getting some conductance now. We've got 118 volts on the variac. I've just took that up to 130 now. Can't hear anything through the speakers yet, mind. Oh yes, I can. All I can hear is the wind blowing outside in here. Got a bit of a gale going on at the moment. Yep, that's coming up nice. That's good. So we're at 164 volts there on the variac. So we're just going to let that sit for a minute now. And we have 310 on there. What we've got on this node. $220. So that's all looking good. The next thing to do on this amp, of course, is to check the bias on it to make sure those output tubes are running correctly. And as we looked earlier, this amp doesn't have a bias trim pot, and some of you who watch the channel know I'm not a fantastic fan of trim pots. So let's just see what negative volts we've got. 23.97, nearly 24. Of course, we're only 164 volts. That's going very nicely now, so I'm going to take that up a bit more. So that's about 185 volts. And now I've got 269. I have to throw this probe away because it's blunt on the end now. So we're up to 200 volts now. Let's see what we've got on this first node. We have 376. So that's all looking good. So I was just thinking that EQ presence works okay. Turn this channel does seem quieter than the other one. Don't seem to have as much gain. Don't know. Won't know till we get the guitar in there, will we? But yeah, that's all looking good. All the controls are working as well. Thirty on the bias now. So let's go up to the 240 mark. There. Those tubes smell pretty warm. 34.9. Right, time to do some math. 2.57 on the right, and we divide that by 64. That comes out at 40 milliamps. We've got there, and the plate voltage is now 439. That's 17.6. So that is spot on. Let's try the other side. 2.3 divided by 59. That's 38.9 milliamps. So let's write that down. 38.9 milliamps, and we times that by 439. That is 17.1. That is a wrap. So this amp is now fully biased, and this amp is ready to roll. So we're ready to give this a test. Right, so I've got this amp back in the cabinet, and these feet were on there, and I don't know who's tried to screw these on. Just look at the bolts on there. These, well, screws, sorry, not bolts. Just look at them. I mean, they're just wood screws. These, and you can see what on earth put those on. They've obviously been on some years now. Whether they've been replaced or what that one was like, it's been burnt, I don't know, but they're horrible. So I've had to take those off. So what I've done is didn't have any feet, but I did find these useful items. So I've clipped off the other three nuts. Remember, there were those where you clip them into the square hole. I've clipped off the other three and put some metric ones on with thicker bolts, because of course we've now only got 3 fixing bolts on this amp instead of 4. So I've put some more heavier duty bolts in, just to make sure that those 3 hold okay. And the bottom one, what I've done is down here, you can see, not wonderful, but I've put in I put a screw in there and fastened the other one right close to where that hole is. So if someone comes to open this up, they will take they'll take that out, and they'll then see that that hole is empty, and also they probably took the other 3 out, maybe, or at least one of the others. They'll realise that's loose and doesn't have a bolt by the time they've gone inside it. Also, if someone looks underneath this and it's, you know, they see a bolt missing, well, they might, as I said, they might try and screw one in, although they'll get no mileage with it because we've took the nut out. But when they see that at a glance, it's got 4 feet, it's got 4 bolts in it, but one's an odd one. So it's just, all it is to deter anything from that, really. It's a bit overkill, but it's 100%. I like things to be right, at least safe. They're not ideal, these. Not the type of thing you want to put on here indoors as table, or that would be a massive frying pan offence. If you don't know what a frying pan offence is, look it up online. It's where she gets the frying pan and gives you a larraping with it. Right, we've got this Selmer up and running. I think we will have to get some feet for it. Well, those will do temporarily, maybe, but we probably will need some feet. It's just rocking slightly, but it'll manage for the time being. Right, let's have a listen. the other channel. Whoa! Got that turned up then, really full up. Not as bright, this channel. When I bought it. The Selmer Treble N Bass 50 SV. This is about the third, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 of these now that I've done. Fantastic amplifiers, incredibly quiet, beautiful amplifier. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching, you all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.